Sovereignty on the Brink and the Shadow of Social Revolution. Under President Prabowo's leadership, the direction of Indonesian diplomacy appears to have undergone a drastic shift, sparking intense controversy. Policies initially described as pragmatic strategies are now viewed by many as a series of enlightened silliness that are slowly being perceived as pawning Indonesia's sovereignty to the United States. Airspace concessions and national security. One of the most sensitive points in this narrative is the presentation of Indonesia's airspace concessions to the United States. This move is viewed by executives as a serious violation of territorial integrity. Granting air access to foreign military powers not only heightens self-defense, but also positions Indonesian skies as a territory that can be used for Washington's strategic interests, automatically eroding the country's full control over its own territory. The unequal Prabowo-Trump trade deal. Economically, the trade agreements reached with the Donald Trump administration are considered to be highly detrimental to the country. Instead of gaining competitive advantages, Indonesia is seen as being trapped in terms that favor American corporations. Aggressive market liberalization. Local commodities are crushed by a flood of imported products without adequate protection. Debt burden and dependence. These agreements are often accompanied by financial commitments that burden state finances, creating chronic dependence that dictates domestic economic policy. Middle East Peace Council. Constitutional contradiction. The most controversial diplomatic move was Indonesia's involvement in the Middle East Peace Council, initiated by the Western Bloc. This policy was deemed contrary to the preamble of the 1945 Constitution, which mandates the abolition of terrorism worldwide. By joining a council deemed biased towards certain hegemonic interests in the Middle East, Indonesia was seen as abandoning the principle of free and active foreign policy and moving away from the spirit of the struggle for independence of oppressed nations. Economic pressure and loss of control. This dependence creates a domino effect on people's lives. When a country leans too heavily towards one major power, domestic policies often begin to be squeezed. If these investments and loans are not managed transparently, Indonesia risks becoming entrapped in suffocating debt. The impact is clear: subsidies to meet international standards and rising prices of basic goods that are beginning to hurt the common people. Triggers of tension and the rise of the People's Movement. These policies, considered detrimental, have become highly flammable fuel at the grassroots level. The public sees a pattern in which the interests of elites and foreign powers are prioritized over national well-being. Anti-imperial sentiment. The wounds of colonial history are reopened as people feel their nation's dignity is being traded away. Crisis of trust. The government's inability to maintain air and economic sovereignty creates massive delegitimation in the eyes of the public. End of the narrative towards a social revolution. If this accumulated disappointment does not occur soon, Indonesia is on the brink of a social revolution. History shows that the anger of the people who feel their sovereignty has been violated will always find its way to major changes. As in 1998, a movement for change, spearheaded by students and elements of the people, will emerge organically. This revolution emerged as a coercive attempt to regain control of the country, demanding the cancellation of all detrimental trade contracts, blocking foreign military access to Indonesian airspace, and returning Indonesia's foreign policy to the original mandate of the Constitution through Reformasi Volume 2. Conclusion. The destruction of sovereignty began at international negotiating tables and ultimately ended on land, driven by the power of the masses. The 1998 revolution is a stark reminder that when a nation feels sold, it is the people who will mobilize to buy back their national dignity through struggle.
Dijual tanah dengan lokasi sangat strategis di kawasan Jati Bening, Bekasi, dekat akses jalan tol Jakarta Cikampek dan LRT. Sangat cocok untuk rumah tinggal, ruko, kos-kosan, atau investasi properti jangka panjang. Hubungi 0878 270 52799.